Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host bringing you live emotional well-being series that we started a couple of weeks ago. And this is something that is always needs to be talked about. But how do we talk? What are the things? Let's understand. So when we started the emotional well-being series, the first one that we did was what is actually emotional well-being? And then we also did what are the symptoms, just like, we diagnose our health and our mind. This is something that we have to keep check every single moment of our journey, whether we do nothing or we do something. It's always affects our emotional. And so, once again, we have the pleasure to continue this series with Bianca, who is herself has been a very instrumental in her own journey to create her own journey. And I think to create anything and everything, we need our emotional well being to be checked by ourselves than anyone else. So, welcome, Bianca, for this beautiful episode of Emotional Well-being series. Today, we are going to talk about causes of emotional well-being, but just take a little bit of two words from Bianca. Welcome to this beautiful episode, third episode. Over to you. What do you have to say?
Well,
And
thanks
then
for
we
having me
can,
back on the series.
yeah.
Um, I think it's super important to be able to identify the causes of emotional well-being and really seeing that where it stems from. Because if you don't know where it stems from, how are you supposed to heal your emotional well-being?
Mm, that's right. Absolutely, absolutely. So we are going to do today what are the causes. We recapped on what is emotional well-being and what are the symptoms, but let's understand what are the causes and how do we diagnose what are the causes of emotional well-being. Because it's very hard for somebody else to tell the causes, or is it for you to understand the causes of your own emotional? So I'm going to ask you, Bianca, how do you view this when you want to view or understand the causes? Does somebody has to make you understand what are the causes, or just like symptoms when you see, but then causes are different? How do you see it? Somebody else telling you, or you can identify the causes, but or sometimes you don't know. What is it? What's your view?
I think it can come from like self-reflection, whether that's with
Mm-hmm.
yourself or with a friend or a therapist or a family member, but it's reflecting on your past and what's happened in your life to
Mm-hmm.
create outcomes and affect different aspects of your life. So just reflecting, whether that's yourself or with someone else. So it can be a bit of both, to be honest.
Mm. You mentioned about the, past events that are happened. So sometimes the causes could be, as you said, through your friends or through your family or through whatever, or an event that has happened. Even like if a birthday party, you reflect. When you said
Mm.
reflect, reflecting something must have happened on a certain day or certain moment. And that could be one of the triggering points of the causes of your emotional, because you either drift away in the past or you think that nothing is going to happen in the future because of the past. That could lead to something that we don't understand. What could be the cause and what could be the real issue that we have to identify to move forward rather than get stuck? So
Yeah.
tell me something about how would you uncover this? How do you know, make this transition of your mind?
Well, I do think staying in the present is really important, but I also
Hmm.
think being able to reflect and learn from the past and being able to make changes from the past experiences is really important to be able to move
Hmm.
forward in that future, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So like learning from history, right, is a
Hmm.
really important thing. But I think it's got it can have many different causes. It could be a past relationship. It could be the environment that you're in,
Hmm.
your upbringing,
Hmm.
and your mindset, I think those are like the four big things.
But you said learning from the history. I really, really admire that, because not many people understand history is to be learned and not to be get stuck into it. Because they think most of the emotional well-being is caused because something has happened in the past, that is the history, but then they think that history will repeat. And so I don't want to be in that situation. And they never do or never move forward because they have the preset mind that if it has happened in the past, it will happen now also. And then they don't take those changing or learnings from that, or they don't want to learn from that past, but they want to get stuck in the past. How do you make this kind of transition in your mind, as you said rightly?
That is actually the idea of, have you heard the idea of induction?
No, tell me.
It's like a philosophy view. So it's like
Mhm.
the idea that because something's happened in the past, it must happen again in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So this like really commonly used idea of
Mm-hmm.
induction is because the sun's risen in the past, it's going to rise again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy called David Human suggested the problem of induction about how we can't always predict that the same thing's going to happen again just because it happened in the future, in the
Mm-hmm.
past. So because it happened in the past does not necessarily mean it happen in the future. And that's a problem of induction, right?
Got
So this idea has been around for so long
it.
about because it's happened in the past, it means it's going to happen in the future. And that's not necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
You're just predicting, you're just taking a guess that it's going to happen and it might not happen again.
So is it our assumption is making a very strong kind of effect on our emotions because of our assumptions and because of our past? And to move to that, to navigate to that, to how do we navigate when we are so much strongly embedded that, oh, as you rightly said, sun has come today, so it will come tomorrow. And that's a very good analogy that you mentioned. But also, like when you know that you have to learn from the past, not actually get stuck. And just because it has happened in the past, something that will also repeat now. But that change of mind, basically, the transition to do or not to do, to be or not to be, that kind of situation we are into when we reflect our past and we reflect our present and we
Mm.
want to move forward, but we are stuck in the past. How do you see that?
Well, I think being able to reflect and being able to pinpoint a cause that you think could have affected your mental well-being is the first thing that needs to be done. Because if you can't
Mhm.
find a cause, then it's really hard to make the change, the right kind of changes for your needs and your
Mm,
future being. And so it's being able to pinpoint that cause and being able to assess what is the root reason of why my mental well-being has
mm,
negatively changed. And
mm,
from that, you're able to seek help and look at different ideas to change that viewpoint and change how that
yeah.
thing happened in the past and then change the outcome in the future, right? Because
Yeah, correct.
you're able to
But
like grow and learn from that experience.
But isn't it like the assumption factor is so strong that we assume a lot of things? And that is actually, in a way, it's like our subconscious mind telling us and then stopping us to explore. Because
Yeah,
assumption never leads to explore, it just gets you stuck because we are assuming. Uh,
yeah,
how do you view this for this emotional well-being, when as a cause, assumptions could be one of the cause, right?
yeah.
Perspectives. How do you view that?
I think it's hard. I mean, assumptions can they can be they can be negative or they can be positive, I guess. If you like assume something bad's gonna happen, then that's gonna be negative, right?
Yeah.
But if you're assuming something positive is gonna happen, that can be a
Mm.
positive effect. But
Hmm.
I think the problem with assuming stuff is there's no evidence to back it up.
Mm. That's
You've
true.
got no scientific evidence that's like, yeah, that is gonna happen. So because you're assuming something,
Mm.
and it's assuming it, say it's negative, so you're assuming something negative, you're only gonna have a
Mm.
negative look on something. It's only gonna become more scary and more overwhelming than it actually needs to be, and you're making it so much worse for
Mm.
yourself than it would be if you just let life happen as it happens and just stay in the
So
present and stop having a futuristic mindset.
mm.
That makes
I
sense.
know in our past conversation you said about knowing the unknown is so important. It's so beautiful rather than knowing and doing things. It's always better to not know and then do things. So it's a beautiful experience of exploring that. You don't know what's going to happen, but that's the beauty of it. Why do you want to know? If you know something, then it's a boring, according to me. But the emotional side of it, where kicks in, is our well-being point of view. Like, how do you maintain and manage your emotions every single time when you reflect and when you say that, oh, this is the cause that happened, and now I want to avoid that, not knowing that that incident, this incident, any incident in the future can be correlated but cannot be same. We may say that, okay, sun comes every day, but we don't know the reflection of that sun every day. Is it the same or is it changes? Nobody can measure it, right?
Mm.
Basically, how do you view this as one of the cause that can happen by just assumption? But assumption is one, but then that can lead to not exploring is another. So that means you are deprived of many new things that could happen positively to you. And as you said rightly, if you assume positive, then it's good. It happens positive. But if you assume negative, then it will happen negative, right? That's what you
Yeah.
said. So it's very powerful to understand the knowing the unknown is also a powerful thing, but also a positive thing. Because why do you want to know the same old thing each time, which will ultimately makes your emotions and well-being a boring one and then get rusted, basically. Is that what you see it as well, the way I see?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
That way. So, okay, so what about the causes that really happen not because of you, but because of someone? Say,
Mm.
for instance, some incident happened, nothing to do with you, but it has affected you.
Hmm.
How do you view that? How do you challenge that emotional well-being? How do you navigate that type of incident, that type of cause, call it?
I
Somebody
guess
else's involvement, somebody else's could be affecting you.
I do my like relationship wise.
No, for anything. For instance, there could be a cause that you have created because of you took some actions. And
Hmm.
then there would be cause through someone else. Could be family, could be friends, could be anyone, could be colleagues, could be anyone. And that lead has also affected you and your emotions.
Yeah.
So how do you view this as, caused by someone, caused by yourself? They are two different things, but they give you the impact same way. Your emotional
Yeah.
well-being is still challenged at that time. But how do you navigate that? For all the listeners who are listening, hey, that was not my fault, but it did happen and it did affect me. So how do I view this as to move forward?
So I guess it's kind of like an environmental
Mm.
cause, isn't it? Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
outside of your control. Yeah. I guess it's
Mm.
trying to take away yourself from the environmental cause. But I know
Mm.
that's like sometimes you can't do that, right? But
Yeah.
the more that you're able to face it and come, I guess, create boundaries, but becoming comfortable then at the same time. So
Mm.
like being able to combat it
Yeah.
with having certain boundaries put in place to protect yourself, it
Mm.
allows you to grow. And as you're able to grow and you're becoming it like
Mm.
a different person of sort. Like each day you're learning something new, you're doing something new, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when you have that same issue arise again, you can know that you're not the same person that you were when it originally happened. And
Correct.
you've got all these new life skills and
Mm.
experiences to back
Mm.
you up. So it makes that environmental change or
Yeah.
cause
Mm.
easier to deal with because you've got a solid foundation behind you of experience now.
Yeah. Yeah. So having said that, that's one part is you talked about the environmental. That could be weather changes, weather environmental situation, or it could be COVID-like situation that is not your fault, but it's
Mm,
but it still affects. But when it comes to any personal relationships or not even relationship, just like Whether you are with your family or with your friends or with anyone, it's still a relationship there with colleagues and everyone, right? But say something has happened because of someone's actions and that has affected you as an emotion in your emotional well-being. How would you combat that? How would you tell your mind that, hey, I did not cause it? It was caused by someone, but why am I giving importance to so much that you didn't cause it, but somebody else caused it? How do you navigate that?
I guess it's about like not putting guilt on yourself for the
That's right.
situation or the thing happening. So
Mm,
blaming yourself and it's accepting that this happened and there's nothing you can really do about it anymore. The only thing that you can do about it is managing your own feelings and emotion and the way that you communicate to the other person and not putting that blame on yourself for that
mm,
thing happening.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where most of the people get feel guilt, shame,
Mm,
and that's the biggest cause of emotions. One of the like feeling guilty or feeling like, hey, that was my fault. Each time beating up yourself as if like you caused it. And even if you cause it, you still have the ability to change it, isn't it? You still
yeah.
have got to change those. And to do that, I mean, that's where the emotional well-being is always controlled by you. If you feel that something is wrong that has happened in your mind, but for someone who did it, for him it's right they did it. But for you, you may say it's wrong. And you only have to manage it because it's your emotional well-being is affected by that mindset, by that thoughts, by that guilt, by that shame, whatever you call it, right? um, Changing that perspective or knowing the fact that your emotion well-beings can be changed by you, that's a very
Mm.
powerful thing to understand. But how do you make those self-realization? What's your view on these? Each time you learn, each time you explore, but each time you reflect, and each time you want to self-realize what learning. But you said very nicely that you have to learn from the history. This is what I tell everyone, that you have to learn from the history, not get stuck in the history, because that has gone, it has passed. It's never going to come back, and you should never expect to come back. So,
Yeah.
so this is very crucial for as a cause. Like, we want everything. We know we have the power to change, but how do you realize that we have the power? Because that's what is checking your emotions each time. What's your view on changing your own or knowing your own power? Let's put it this way. How do
I
you
guess
know?
hmm. It's important to know that like our life is completely controlled by us and how we view it and how we live it is completely controlled by like you
Mm-hmm.
as a person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're the only one that's living that life. And I feel like you don't want to live a life where you're constantly battling with yourself and you're constantly fighting yourself because you are the only person you have for your entire life, right?
That's
So you
correct.
want to be able to create an environment that you want to live in and
Mm.
that feels right and feels nice to live in, right? So
Mm.
it's about I think it is about understanding that you are the only person you have for the rest of your life
Yeah.
and that you need to create an environment with yourself that is happy and it's wholesome and you want to be there.
Mm.
So it's
That,
about speaking nicely to yourself and it's not about
that's right.
negatively speaking
Mm.
to yourself and making an environment that's toxic by your own thoughts and emotions and
Mm.
being stuck in the same like negative loop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the takeaways last when we spoke, and I expressed that thoughts to someone, and they could not believe that that's so powerful and deep. And what you reiterate just now is you are the only person who you are with basically throughout your life. That's very powerful. But then also learning from yourself and knowing yourself is also you said last time, which was very powerful. But and that's why I asked this question just now is like, how do you manage, how do you navigate your own emotions when you know the causes could be many things. Causes can be outer, causes can be inner. Your health can also cause insidely, but your mental mind also can cause your emotions. But your outer environment, your outer relationships or relationships that you don't meet, but you just meet often or not often, but they could also affect your emotions. But dealing with these different kind of causes, dealing with different kind of causes for your emotions is these two. I want to reiterate to all the listeners that this, the one that you said, you are the only one who are you with you, and you can change and you can learn from yourself. But again, my point is, this is a very profound self-realization. Not many people understand what does that mean, knowing yourself. What does that mean, learning from you yourself? Not many understand. They just know that, oh, I have to learn from others. I have to learn from my school or my outer environment. The inner environment, nobody understands that they can learn from that as well. That self-realization, what's your take on it for all the listeners who are listening, that you should be, how do you make those realization from time to time that you are the one on your own?
I guess it's just like about like looking back at your life and seeing like the people who have come and gone and what they've added to your life and what they've taught
Mm.
you,
Hmm.
but they were only there for a short while, and at the end of the day, they were just like a part of your own story.
Right,
And
right.
like as you go through, the only person who is there through the entirety time is you. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Absolutely. It makes sense to me. But why, I guess all the listeners who are listening, I mean, it's very profound and deep, but it's very simple. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. You don't have to study. You don't have to read books and books to understand yourself. You just have to reflect yourself, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, to be honest. But that decision of self-realization and acceptance that who you are, but who have made you who you are, or what learnings you have done, and they are all temporary, who came in your journey, but they taught you or they made you, realize certain things, certain ways. And I think that's very powerful. So I mean, I hope all the listeners have understood what is so simple. It's not very rocket science, but that simple thing creates a huge kind of a effect and impact on your emotions every single time, which you can overcome. You don't have to depend, because that's another topic we will be very soon doing, that when you want to depend someone, that means you are seeking for support or you are seeking for help, but that's a different ball game altogether. Let's stick to the causes once again. Coming back to the causes, so yeah, so what you said is perfect, but moving from here, what do you think are the other causes that could really really affect your emotions?
I think sometimes we make it worse, our
Hmm.
well-being worse for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is an example, but it's like kind of like a silly
Yeah, yeah,
example.
tell me, go
But
on. How do you?
recently, I my friends recently got a new partner, right? And
Mm-hmm.
every single time that I would hang out with her, she would call her partner for an hour or two, and I would just sit there, like hanging out with her, but she'd be on the phone with her partner every single time we'd hang out. And I didn't say anything. And every time I would go home from hanging out with her, I'd be like, all I would think about was how I felt ignored the whole
Mm,
time I hang out with her. I was like, well, I'm like losing my friend because I'm not being able to hang out with her because she's
mm,
always on her phone. She's always ignoring me. Someone else is more of a priority than I am,
mm,
right? And I would think about it all the time. I'm playing like a loop. And
mm,
I realized that I didn't communicate it to her, so it was making it worse for myself. And I was constantly stuck in a cycle of replaying the incidents over and over in my head and
mm,
not letting it
mm,
go.
mhm,
So if I had been able to communicate to her, which I have done now, and being able to understand that it's not my fault that she's
mm.
talking to her friend, her partner all the time,
Oh,
and
yeah,
being
yeah.
able to not put that guilt on myself and being able
Mhm,
to address the issue
mm,
like at like forward on, it
mm,
would allow it to not get worse. And if
mm,
I just said something the very first time, it wouldn't have become to this very big thing, right? So if you just
Mm,
address it head on and not allow yourself to like go into a cycle,
mm.
it doesn't have to be something that it
Correct.
turned out to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. I am with you, and I understand this is a very practical example you gave today. I mean, everybody deals with that. Everybody realizes that when they get into this situation, they don't realize that what they are doing. So, do you think the outer elements that we have got so much access and so much tools in today's world that we lose our concentration? So, even example like even meeting your friend or family or anyone and doing something else while meeting is a very common thing happening. Like we are eating for dinner, but then everybody is on their phone, for example, right?
Yeah.
And why are we meeting then together? What are we doing? That means the outer elements or the outer access tools, whatever you call it, has been controlling your emotions so much that you miss out on the real emotions that you need to share with the people, but you are sharing with the devices. Does that
Yeah.
does that make sense? Kind of where you try to understand that, hey, that is also not causing for the ones who is using, but also the ones who are actually with them. It's also their emotions are being affected, right?
Yeah.
Basically. So if I am with you and you are having dinner, but I am on the phone all the time, and then you are affected, I am affected, but we don't realize that have we affected or is it normal? So is that the thing, one of the causes in today's world that we are dependent and we have lost the concentration of what we want to be and where we want to be, when we want to be, and when we are in that situation, we forget our concentration, our consciousness, we call it, because we are
Mm.
doing everything subconsciously, isn't it?
Yeah.
And and subconscious has become a norm, a normal. And then we allow that to happen, and then we think, what is the cause? Then we realize I have not been communicative at all because I've been silent and only communicating on the phone, which is not the real communication. It is just navigating through the phone. How do you see in today's world the causes that could have caused? Like phone is one example, classic. But then there are things like I want to do this, I want to meet you, but when I meet you, I do my own thing, and the meeting agenda is behind, basically, or is been ignored. You know what I
I
mean?
guess it can create like an illusion of
Mm,
doing something positive, but you actually haven't fully done it and you haven't fully gained
mm,
everything you could have gained from it, like meeting up with someone and then not actually socially interacting with them or just like being
yeah.
on your computers or being on your phones. So, like you are meeting up with someone, but you're
Mm,
not gaining that social interaction benefit. So it
mm.
creates this illusion of, oh, but I have gone out and I have socialized. But in reality, how much have you actually done? How much
Yeah.
interaction have you actually had?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. So, adding to that, here is a question which for all the listeners and for myself and for everyone who are living in the current system, the way we are in the world, there is, as you rightly said, social elements and then technology elements. So we have got two things at the moment, social elements and technological elements. And we have been more and more using technology elements than the social elements. So even if I want to meet on your birthday, for example, I would rather send you a text with a birthday cake than meet you in person, right? That's
Mm,
the technology has created even for birthday gifts, simple examples. But then if you meet socially, that's a totally different kind of feeling, different experience, right? But
mm.
but we are so much addicted to the technological elements that our social elements are reduced. And in that regard, how do you see as one of the major cause of the emotion well-being for everyone, not just for person who is using technology or person who is not using technology? They are more reliant and dependent on the technological elements rather than the social elements. How do you see that affecting?
Well, I can see social media positively influencing, and but I also see it
Yeah.
definitely negatively influencing. I guess it's kind of like how you use it personally, right? Like if you use it as your only form of social connection, that can negatively
Mm.
influence it. But if you create a balance between both, it
Yeah.
can actually widen that social interaction that you do have.
Hmm.
But the idea with being socially and connected through social media, it's quite different to actually going in and
Yeah.
actually hanging out with a person, actually interacting with them. It's quite a different side of what you see, and it
Mm.
uses a different set of skills as well as a person to be able to actually talk to someone in real life.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it creates benefit and a bit of a negative side to it as well. But I
Yeah.
think
What you said, balancing is a very hard for everyone to understand what is balancing means. Because, say, for instance, people like me, I'll give you a classic example. I want to do because I run my media, I run my this, that, and most of the time I want to increase my network clientele. But so then social media is the best means, and then I do it.
Mhm.
Right. But then the balancing, how much time do you want to put there and how much time you want to put it in the social element, right? Basically, that becomes a challenge that am I doing too much or I am doing too little? And again, am I getting benefit out of it or I am creating more worse situations for me? What you said before, that we can sometimes create worse situations for us and worse things. How do you see in today's world the the balancing act is how do we measure that balancing act? The necessary, the comforts, and the luxuries. These are the normal things, right? We want basic things to be done. We want necessity. It's a necessity. It's a comfort thing or it's a luxury thing. And all these things appear every single time in every single thing we do because
Yeah.
we see what are the basic needs, then we have to do it. We see what is comfort, I can do it later. We can see what is necessity, we can see what is luxury. How do you view this and how do you manage this?
Well, like with like social media has such a benefit. Like it widens your circle and it
Hmm.
can bring so much more people into your life that you didn't expect to have originally.
So
But
true.
I do think that it can't be
Hmm.
traded up for pure social interaction.
Hmm.
And I think that we all have different social batteries and different
Hmm.
abilities to be able to spend time with other people. And I just really think it's just about knowing yourself and knowing how much time you need with other people and how much time
Hmm.
you need by yourself to recover and rest, like whether
Hmm.
you're an introvert or an extrovert.
Hmm.
So it's a bit about knowing yourself and
Hmm.
what's your limit and how much you actually need, I think.
So true. But tell me one thing, elaborating that, how do you see this cause that I sometimes feel that, saying no and saying yes and meeting often and meeting less also causes the emotions, also cause our emotional well-being, and we are always juggling. And as you
Mm.
rightly said, we want to balance it. And then how do you see this element that people's humans tendency that, hey, I can't say no to that person. So I keep saying no, or I keep saying yes. But then I reluctantly don't want to be. I am reluctantly doing everything rather than open-heartedly. So that also caused the big emotions, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What's your experience on that? How do you deal with it?
And we've definitely all agreed to social situations that we don't want to go and we don't want to do
Yeah,
it. We're like, oh, okay, I'll do it.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think it can like emotionally drain you being in a situation that you don't
Mm,
necessarily want to be in or you don't like to be in. And
that's
I
right.
think it's important to be able to create boundaries with other people
Mm,
and
mm,
setting boundaries to protect yourself
mm,
so that
mm,
you're able to recharge and not be emotionally drained. And
mm.
because I think you want to be around people that lift you up
Right.
and like charge your battery rather than drain it, right?
Mm,
And if you're constantly saying yes to things that you don't want to do, or if you're constantly around people who drain your battery, you're going to constantly feel tired
mm,
and stressed out and overwhelmed, and life's going to be so much harder than it needs to be.
mm,
Then if you were saying no, and if you were spending time around people that only charge your battery, life
mm.
would feel so much more happy and bubbly, and you'd want to go see people and you'd want to
Absolutely.
socially interact.
Yep.
But I think it can create like a negative connotation with hanging out with people if you're
Mm,
constantly
mm,
feeling drained, like your boundaries are not, you're not doing what you want to do. It makes
mm,
this idea of like, oh, socializing, I don't like it. Like I hate socializing. I'm not, it's just not who I am. And maybe it is, but maybe you're just around the
Mm.
wrong kind of people.
Yeah. See, one of the things that I wanted to ask you also, like one is a regular basis that you check or you have your emotions checked by yourself is by interacting with yourself or with your near dear ones that you regularly meet and regularly have to meet and regularly see often. That's where the emotions well-being also is checked. But then there are elements like you go out of your way and you create and you commit certain things to do certain things, and that's another emotions well-being is also checked
Mhm.
there, right? These are two different things. One, on a regular basis you are struggling or managing your emotional well-being with your near dear, everyone that you see, whoever it is, and and do your routine things. That's your emotional well-being one. Another one is you commit yourself to do something out of the way that nobody knows, only you have committed, and you created that emotional well-being to manage yourself. But you have created it, basically.
Mm.
It's nothing to do with your near dear elements, right? How do you see this affecting and managing the way, or do you think that, oh, people should not create if they can't commit, or I mean, if they can't manage their emotions? Because sometimes these emotions can lead to anger, anxiety, fear, full, all these things. And then you take certain actions or certain reactions, which is not pleasant either for yourself or for anyone around you, which means you are responsible for your own, which is fine, but then you are creating negative impact on you as well. So
Mhm.
how do you, these two different things? One, you regularly have your emotional well-being checked because you have to do those certain things. In one, you are created by yourself, like out of the way. Like we wanted to do some podcast. We wanted to do. So you created it out of your way, basically.
Mhm.
And one, you are regularly doing your routine stuff. You have to study, you have to this, you have to do that, all that, right? That's regular emotional. And you have to manage that. Then you have to manage this side as well. How do you see that? Is it your way saying that, okay, you should not create, or you should, because some people are multitaskers, some people are not. Again, there is a difference in that. But question is balancing. How do you balance these things which can cause your emotions?
I guess it's about like you kind of it's kind of I'm saying it's like a goal or like something you need to do, right?
Yeah,
Um, so I think about it's about like taking time out of your day to make sure that happens and
yeah.
communicating to others around you about what is going on in your life and what you may need from them.
Hmm.
Because otherwise they may conflict with that and you'll get angry and it can be
That's
this big
correct.
thing. But if you communicate them to others what you need before you need it,
Yeah.
they're able to
Hmm.
know what to do in the situation. They're able to navigate it a lot easier than if they were going in blind. So that kind of eliminates, well, helps to eliminate any relationship issues with setting the goal. And
Mm.
then the only other thing that you need to be able to deal with is yourself. And I think it's important. You need to create an environment where you're true to yourself always. So if you say that you're going to do something, you put in your best effort to do it. And it's okay to have setbacks and it's okay to make mistakes and not be perfect 100% of the time because we're not perfect all the time. And it's
Correct.
allowing yourself to be guilt-free and be like, okay, I've made that mistake, but I can move on from the situation. I can keep going to achieve the thing that I want to achieve.
Yeah. And I think goals are very important, right? You want to create all the time something rather than sitting there and watching somebody else creating their vision and creating their goals. So, but how important it is, again, people think that no, I don't want to commit because it's going to be, it's not my, either they are lazy, you can call it, or they don't have no motivation for it doing it. But then they remain where they are. They don't, if they don't try, then they don't go. They don't move, they remain where they are, right?
Mm,
And that emotional well-being is very also critical. One day they will think, "Oh, why didn't I do it when had the opportunity, or when I was at that age I could have done it, why didn't I do it?" That could also be a challenge later in their journey, as a regret, or as a something that they will regret forever, kind of thing. But to to not go to that stage, it's better to try and do something, right? And that could be your goal, that could be your vision. So
Yeah.
how would you see that people not taking those risks, not taking the unknown to be known? How do you see that as a could be a real cause for emotional well-being?
Well, I guess like a good example would be like studying, right? Like you
Yeah.
never want to study in the moment, but say you don't study, then in a couple of weeks you'll be sitting in the exam room and you'll be
Yes.
looking at the test and you're not going to know a single answer on the test. Then a couple of
Hmm.
weeks later, you're going to get your exam results back and you're going to fail, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then say you fail the entire class and have to resit it next year because you didn't
Hmm.
do that one little thing that would have taken a couple hours out of your day to prevent such worse outcomes down the line. So I
Hmm.
think it's about like weighing up benefit and risk. Like that studying for those couple hours is such a benefit and it's gonna save you so much time in the future and it's gonna make you feel a lot more confident in yourself and your own abilities because you know that you've put in that just a little bit amount of effort to prevent something worse from happening in the future. And you can do it by creating like mini goals. Like it's not about like your first goal shouldn't just be like, I'm gonna get an A on that test. It should be like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna study for an hour.
Hmm.
And then you create another goal. I'm gonna study for 3 hours. And
Hmm.
just try and achieve each goal as it comes and not
Hmm.
looking at the map, like not looking at the big picture and just moving it down to something smaller rather
Hmm.
than taking on such a big task all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's great. So I wanted to ask you now another thing is which I thought like, another emotional cause could be like delaying things, or like we call it the procrastination, that we don't want to do now, we can do it later, we can do it after 1 year, after 2 years, as if like we know what how much life we are going to live, and we keep delaying. And that could be one of the things that you had the opportunity, but you didn't do it because you thought this is not the right thing. So I can do it later. I can do it 2 years later, whatever. That's one side of your thoughts. Another side is like, okay, I want to be preventive and I want to be proactive. So whatever I am doing proactively, and that is also causing my emotional kind of a different feeling, different state of mind when you are in prevention mode, or when you are, preventive method, using preventive method, you are in a different mindset. And when you are procrastination or you're delaying, you are in a different mindset. But the both are equally could be one of the causes of your emotional well-being. Do you agree with this? What do you think on this? What's your view on delaying things and doing proactively?
I guess like we delay things because we either see it as too much,
Mm,
scary, or we don't have the motivation to do it, and we'd rather just do something easier, like lay in
mm,
bed,
mm.
right? And I
Yeah.
think it's about by not doing it, we're getting like instant satisfaction, but it's not gonna benefit you in the long run. It's
Mm,
only gonna benefit you there and then. And then in a couple hours it'll be over and you'll be doing the next thing, right? So it's about being able to understand I guess where you want your life to go, I would
mm,
say. And the decisions that you make will affect your future and it will affect the rest of your life. So it is important to be able to
mm,
choose your own path. And by, I guess, procrastinating, you are choosing a path for yourself, whether you like it or not. You are choosing a path. So it's about what path do you want to go down and who do you want to
mm,
be as a person, I
mm.
guess.
Yeah, this is amazing that what we are discussing, Bianca. I think we are almost speaking now for a good number of time, but I think I need finally to ask you this to all the listeners and to myself is one important aspect of causes. We always, right the day we are born until we keep doing things, two things affect us. One, immediately, is we want to be, our health is the main thing, that we want to be always intact with our health. to do things, right? One is that. So we always try to become healthy by doing the right thing for your tummy, for your body. That's
Mm.
one thing. And that is also your mind related to that. So your mind tells your body, body tells your mind, whatever, but we keep in check with that. So that's one of the things is the health, the physical health, the internal health. The another aspect, and I want to pick your brain on it. Another aspect is the financial situations, circumstances, or needs, or comforts, or luxuries for that are happening through financial freedom or financial with finances. So, two things. One is the health, and another is finance. They both are so important for our emotional well-being. Anything that has caused due to health, anything that has caused due to finance. Tell me something about these two aspects in your world, in your way of how do you see this two aspects, which is very critical every day. Everybody is talking about, hey, I don't have enough money. Oh, I have good enough money, but I don't know how to spend, where to spend, and they spend sometimes abuse the money power or whatever. But those causes the emotional well-being. Those are the causes of emotional well-being, according to me. These two aspects are there. When I say causes, doesn't mean the causes, the whole thing is a cause, but there are certain things that affect your health and your money or your finances that leads up to your financial, to your emotional well-being. How do you see?
Finances, like, it influences so much.
Mm-hmm.
It influences what you have access to and
Right.
who you know.
That's right.
So
Beautiful said.
finances can like
Mm.
direct like having low income can directly impact your physical health. It can directly impact your mental health.
Mm.
Because if you're unable to afford a doctor, then you're
Mm.
unable to get treatment for a disease or an illness that you might have. That
Mm.
can be make you not be able to work, and
Mm.
then you can't. You'll be in a worse financial situation. So it's kind of a cycle that you can get stuck in. But financial stress is such a big thing, and it's part of everyone's life because it's something that we whether we like it or not, the world evolves around money right now, and we
Mm.
need money to do pretty much everything.
Mm.
And the environment, people work in horrible, horrible environments purely to get money and
Right.
toxic environments, and that environment that you work in can
Mm.
drastically influence your health and your well-being because it's not something that you can necessarily leave
Mm.
behind. Because if
That's
you leave it, you're going to be in a worse off situation, right? So you're kind of stuck in a place that you don't necessarily want to be, but you don't have a choice. And another point, because as well, in New Zealand, it's so hard to find jobs at the moment.
that's true. Very true. You are very well said. And that's why I think that's why it's very important for us to talk about these regular kind of basic fundamental conversations to support each other rather than labeling each other when it comes to
Mm,
finances, when it comes to health. You know, there's a lot of health shame, but there's also a lot of finance shame if you really look
yeah,
at it. Do you agree with that concept that
no,
I'm?
I do.
And that is causing our emotions so drastically and can become worse from little to worse. It can go like that. You rightly said that financial leads to, your well-being in health. And then that health well-being can lead further worse to more issues of violence or reactions or sort of different directions of a human being, right? I think that's very important. But then, how do you see this cause could be literally? What is your simple way of looking at things when it comes to whichever country we are in? But say, let's talk about our country, whatever we are in. How do you see should happen? What should happen really in your way, solution wise, or just a recommendation of solution that you think at this moment, as a person, that you think this can be combated? But how? What's your view of compassion to this?
I think a important aspect of it is ensuring that a work environment is safe and friendly to work in.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Like, because I recently actually was looking for another job and I got a job
Mm-hmm.
and I left that company after 3 days of working there because it was such a horrible environment to do. And I was lucky enough to have the ability to be able to leave. But
Mm.
I, if I had to stay there for permanently or however long, I just know it would have been so bad for my mental health. And I like, because I cried on my very first day there because it was so toxic and the people were so rude. And if you're constantly stuck in that environment and you're
Mm.
unable to escape, then it's going to become so worse. But if you work in an environment that's really positive and you
Yeah.
like working in it, you're at
Yeah.
least going to have a safety net
Yeah.
and it's going to help improve your mental health rather than making it worse and making you feel stuck.
100%.
So I think
100%.
that's a really important aspect of money
Mm-hmm.
and well-being going together.
Mm-hmm. That I agree with that concept, what you're saying. But then in terms of your health issues, that one is the finance. Yes, so workplace, safety, environment, all that are very important to have your well-being. But when it comes to health, what's your solution for that? For work, finances, I understand. Yeah, there has to, as soon as the safety net, everything is there, we feel totally different world is created. I totally agree on,
Mm.
totally. And that also, even if it is a dollar that you receive less, but the safety counts much better impact to your emotional well-being. And when it comes to health, what is would be your recommendation solutions to health, maintaining, managing, in spite of your finances, in spite of your, environment, circumstances? How do you see what's the solution that if you want to improve your health or improve your circumstances and environment that leads to your health, what's your kind of approach?
Well, I feel like you can create a healthy environment for yourself
Mm.
without needing to spend any money on it.
Right.
Like you
Mhm.
don't need to get a gym membership to exercise. Like
Mm.
you can run on the street, you can go on a walk on the street. You don't
Mm.
need to invest money into things
Totally.
like the gym to be able to gain that same benefit as if you
Mm.
had that money. But
Mm.
another aspect of it is definitely like healthcare and healthcare access, which is kind of out of our control and it's kind of up to the government and what they're able to
Right.
give us, right? And I
Mm.
guess it's about a big part of it is about voting for who you think is going to be able to give that to you, probably.
Mm. Mm.
Um, there was this idea that I heard the government talking about. I don't know, I can't remember who it was, about giving New Zealanders like free, three free GP visits a year.
Mm. Mhm.
And that would create a big benefit to diseases and
Mm.
wellness for people. Because
Mm.
other than that, it's really hard to get access to healthcare without having some sort of
Mm.
financial ability to do so.
Mm. So I think labor is trying to bring that policy with three GP visits.
Yeah, maybe it was labor. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that could work well in terms of our health well-being?
Yeah, I think because it gives people the ability to be able to
Mm.
seek professional help when they need to, instead of pushing it to the side and then completely ignoring it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It gives them a chance.
Of course, because there has to, one thing is sure, what you said, acknowledgement is very important. If we have that healthcare is very much minimal, then you have got more chances of more issues of health. And I totally
Yeah.
agree on that. Totally agree on that. There more needs to be done because this is our basic not first fundamental, but our existence as a human being is our health. If
Yeah.
our health is then we are alive. Otherwise, we are not, basically. So, so I totally, completely agree that more needs to be done in terms of healthcare, which is comparatively less at this point. But then, as you said, the financial security and the financial freedom and the safety nets of the environmental in the office and in the company working workplace is also very important to give that motivation and confidence to really grow with independent finances, right? So that's also is very well what you said. So we are coming almost to the end of this episode as causes of emotions and causes of emotional well-being. What's your last message to all the listeners who are listening today? Like we talked about what is emotional well-being, we talked about, symptoms of well-being, and now we are today talking about causes, but then we will come back with the remedies and the support and how to navigate. So I think navigation is also very important. How do we navigate? There we could be many, many things everybody does in a different way, everybody navigates in a different way, but then if that navigates needs support, that also is an important part of the emotional well-being on a regular basis. So with that note, I wanted to ask you with your what's your final message to all the listeners today who are listening with the causes of emotional well-being? What's your last take on it, Bianca?
I think it's really important to be able to identify the causes that affect your emotional well-being in your own life. Because if you're not able to identify them, how are you able to make those changes? So I
Mm,
think it's really about reflecting on our life and our life experiences and what has gotten us to this place,
mm,
and being able to identify issues and things that have benefited our lives as well. So looking at both the positive and the negative, we can't only look at one, we're going to look at both.
yeah, yeah. With that note, I think very well said, Bianca. Thank you so much for this beautiful episode of Causes of Emotional Wellbeing. And to all the listeners, please do write to us if you have any questions with regard to that. But one thing is there that again in this episode, what Bianca reiterated the fact that you are your best friend, your emotions is your best kind of bait, and you have the ability to change your well-being, whether it is emotional, whether it is financial, whether it is anything. But to do that, a lot of things are positive mindset and change the attitudes of the way you have been doing things, because change is inevitable. And our emotional well-being is like the change, which is a constant. So constant change is happening, which means constant emotional well-being needs to be managed. Am I right, Bianca, for that?
Yeah.
So your final word, and we'll end this. What's your final word to all the listeners?
My final word to all the listeners is that I think it's really important to create a peaceful environment with yourself that you want to be in, because you're going to live in that environment every single day. And why would you want to live in an environment that's negative and toxic when you have
So
complete
true.
control of it and you can make it the best environment that you want it to be?
So true, so true. Very well said. So, listeners, make your environment peaceful. Try your best to be peaceful inside first yourself, then you can make the environment peaceful too. With that note, I take this opportunity to thank Bianca for this beautiful episode, and we will come back with more and more topics on emotional well being. With that note, thanks very much, Bianca. Kakite, bye for now.
Thank you.